Sparta. Sparta is one of the most truly interesting ancient Greek city-states. But before you can understand Sparta, you have to understand the life of its citizens, boys and girls. At the start, a child would have been born, and almost immediately would have been examined by the elders. They would have been examined for weaknesses, disabilities, if they were too puny in general, and they would have been discarded on Mount Taygetos. The reason that they did this was because the Spartan life especially was very harsh. You couldn't just be born normally and just live a normal life. You went through vigorous training, and not even just for boys. Girls also were trained and went through the schooling system. But let's first start off with the boys. So the boys would have been born, they would have been examined, and if the elders seemed fit, they would have been brought home and lived a fairly normal life until the age of 7. Now, the agoge, as it was called, was the harsh Spartan warrior training life. This would have gone through hand-to-hand combat, sword combat, even sometimes competitions to who could be lashed the most without screaming out. Now, the Spartans didn't just train for war, no, they also studied music, dance, poetry, lots of different things which have been forgotten from time to time. Now, the girls were taught very different things, from mathematics to all things that you would see other people, other city-states teaching, but not girls. Sparta was very smart, and obviously to have fit children you had to have fit women, and what's the point in having women there if they aren't going to be used for the city-state? Sparta, everything was giving your life to the state. So, the agoge. Some children even may have died in the agoge, but after that, roughly around the age of 16, came the time in the wild. Now, in 300 this was shown as the wolf. This wouldn't quite have been the same as that. They would have basically had to get their own food, and they would have been severely punished if they were caught. Not because they stole, but because they were caught. So the age of 16 to roughly 18 is when they became a man and a warrior. They would have got their panoply, or hoplite armor, around the age of 400 BC. This would have been a Corinthian helmet, a LINOTHORAX or muscle cuirass, an aspis, possibly leg greaves, a DORY, a copis, or a xiphos. So let's have a look at the hoplite panoply. So here, in the age of the classical era, the hoplite consisted of the Corinthian helmet. The Corinthian helmet, as you can see, is a very nice looking helmet. It has a horsehair crest, either going sideways or frontwards. Very nice curvature eye holes. Just all in all a very nice helmet. This helmet went through different stages. Went through the early Corinthian helmet, which is my personal favourite, for aesthetics anyway, and it also had late Corinthian. The difference between these is that early Corinthian simply had no ear hole. This helmet practically covered you from everywhere except your eyes. They would have also had the LINOTHORAX. The LINOTHORAX was a very interesting type of body armor. As you can see here, it looks sort of fragile. It was made out of linen, or some people say leather. The leather one would have been referred to as a SPARTA'S, which is a cheaper version, and just not quite as good as the LINOTHORAX. The LINOTHORAX was, however, hardened linen in strips. The LINOTHORAX would have been very good at stopping arrow fire, and as you have the SPARTA'S, which we'll get onto in a minute, covering you from your neck to your knee, you don't really need that much spear protection. Leg greaves. Now these weren't a need, as the hoplite would have bought his own armour. That's why when I said the cheaper version being the SPARTA'S, it wasn't like a modern day military where you'd sign up and you'd get given your uniform. You'd have to buy it. Bit unusual, but that's how it was. So, leg greaves would have been an extra cost for people who bought them, but they are frankly just for protecting your legs. Then we have the SPARTA'S. The SPARTA'S is the 3-foot shield or 36-inch shield. It was a domed shield with a rim. Now this could have either been coated in bronze or leather, bronze obviously being the more expensive version. Now, the Greeks often treated this as sort of a work of art, and they'd paint an insignia or something, just a picture of something on it. Now the Spartans are commonly depicted having the lambda. That did not happen until the late Peloponnesian Wars, when they did start to put it on. Then for their weapons, they had the DORY, which was an 8-foot spear, which was counterweighted. It was a double-ended spear. The front being the acme, and the back being the saruta, or the little sticker it's also known as. This back end, the saruta, its main use was actually a counterweight, as in a phalanx, you want to get your enemy before they can get close to you. So this was used so that you could hold the spear closer back than forward. The front end obviously was the stabbing end. Now, obviously the saruta could have been used for if the front of your spear gets cut off, you could then switch it round, but its prime use was a counterweight. Then the kopis, or xiphos, just the sword that they would have had. They would have, around this time, had the choice of either a kopis or a xiphos. The kopis is a heavily front-leafed sword, so it's basically just a giant butcher knife. I don't really think I need to describe it. Xiphos being shorter, and the Spartans had their own special version, where it was only a 13-inch blade. This was meant so if you get too close or both ends of your spear broke, then this spear you could stab over your shield and, as gross as it sounds, through the eye holes of your enemy. Now, that is the rough life of the Spartan citizen. But let's go over the city-state of Sparta itself. Now when you think of Sparta, you think of the harsh warrior society and its great warriors. Sparta also had one of the largest territories in Greece, as the Messenian Wars happened fairly early on in Sparta's development. When you say the advanced Spartan hoplites, these only are the Spartians, these are not the Messenians. So on the battlefield there would have been Messenian hoplites or perioikoi, and you have had the Spartians. So for instance, the 300 Spartans which Leonidas took with him were Spartians. That means that they went through the Agoge, they're fully, both parents are Spartan citizens, they are as Spartan as you could get. The Messenians did not, however, go through the Agoge. So the Spartans' military power on the battlefield wasn't as strong as you may think. It still was far stronger than every other city-state, but not every Spartan hoplite or Spartan phalanx would have gone through the training of the Agoge. The other hoplites, or the Messenian hoplites, were probably still more just farmers. And what a hoplite is a citizen soldier. So they would have maybe trained, 4 or 5 times a year, probably more as they were controlled by Sparta, but still nothing as extreme as the Agodi. Now let's go through the combat. The phalanx, a very smart, ingenious way of fighting. You look at the hoplite, and that shield is heavy. I can tell you because I have one. Those things are heavy. They would not be that great in individual hand-to-hand combat, as you just can't move it to deflect blows nearly fast enough as you need it. This is meant to be interlocked together in a phalanx, and when you look at the inside of an aspis, you will see that its arm guard or arm holder is actually in the centre of the shield. You may think that's a bit strange, because that means that half the shield, isn't protecting him, it's just going out to his left. That's where the phalanx is so strong, is the person to your right shield overlaps yours. So it makes like an overlapping shield wall, meaning it's not nearly as easy for it to be pushed around. You can lean against it, and it's a lot stronger. It also means that there are less weak points, as the shields are overlapping. When you look at the Romans, they didn't have the overlapping shields. Theirs was square. Now obviously the Romans, turtle formation, everything was very strong, but we're not here to talk about them, we're here to talk about the Spartans. So the Dory would have been held either overarm or underarm. Most vase paintings show an overarm, but from experience, holding an overarm is more comfortable, but I cannot nearly get as much force with a stab with an overarm spear. So basically, they would have walked up to each other, and they would have met in the middle. This is a phalanx versus a phalanx, and they would have basically just pushed each other, and the casualty rate was actually quite low. It's only about 8%. As basically all it was is the stronger phalanx would push it, and the phalanx would break, and they'd surrender. Because as I said, fighting individually with hoplite armor is not the best idea. So basically, that is how a hoplite fight would have gone. They rarely ever charged into battle. They have done it at the Battle of Plataea and the Battle of Marathon. That was against the Persians, where the Persians' strong force was archers. But what made the Spartans so powerful? What was running the city whilst they were at war or training for war? Now this is another place where Sparta was very unique. Now in ancient Greece, slavery was still at large. Many people think that the Spartans treated their slaves very badly, but in fact it was the opposite. To be a slave in Sparta was not as harsh of a slave as it would be to live, for instance, in Athens, where you have to do everything for your masters. The only things that the Helots would have done in Sparta was mainly farm. This was basically because the Spartans were training for war, and if not training for war, usually at a war, or in war. Meaning that they needed someone to run the farms and those type of things, and that's where the Helots came in. The Helots obviously still had other typical slave traits, but they were not nearly as bad. Now yes, the Helots did uprise against Sparta, but that was far later, where maybe times had changed. Now, let's talk about Sparta's government. This is something which is never really touched upon. Sparta's government was actually very sophisticated, and though people often think of Athens being the starter of democracy, this actually wasn't true. Yes, the Athenians did have a very advanced democracy, but Sparta's was actually the first. So, the 7 elders would be the council. there were also two kings of Sparta, meaning that you couldn't just be like in a different city-state, I'm the king, this rule is going to come through. Or for instance in Athens, for instance at the time of the Peloponnesian Wars, Heracles was king. And overall he still had most of the control. Now yes, it did still have to go through voting and lots of it, but he was still the main man in charge. Sparta having two kings made that very difficult, as they'd have to consult together, and not just the kings but the queens as well would consult together, and then they'd come with their agreement and bring it to the elders, where then it would be discussed and put through. So though Sparta, yes, had the first democracy, it was slightly different to ours, and that is where the Athenians get their fame for it, but it did originate from Sparta. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, I hope you guys understand Sparta a bit more, and please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.